Phew. What's up there? You wonder where I've been for the past 2 days? I've been on that sewing machine making camera straps. I kind of don't know how I got into the camera strap making business, but here I am. My God, that's a lot of cutting and sewing of leather. The super famous photographer, Darren Miles of Darren Miles Photography. He called me today and been texting him for a couple days, asking about what lens to get. He just bought a GFX100S, and he was using that camera like about a year ago when I came to Florida and I met up with him, and he, like anybody else that uses medium format, admits that it's absolutely incredible. For right now, he's going to use that, and it's more than sufficient before migrating to the GFX 100S. However, it is the case that I've had countless hundreds of people email me, and way more than that in comments, telling me that they are getting the GFX 100S. The image sensor and the image engine is identical to that of my GFX 100. By the way, I have a link below in the description. It's a free Fujifilm book, and it's in its 3rd edition, and I rate every GFX lens. I've owned every GFX lens, and I still own them all except for 2, which I don't like, and that's me subjectively. One is the 120mm macro, and the other is the 63mm. The 63 is fine, just in the spectrum of things. It's the ugly person of a room full of beautiful people, kind of a perfect analogy. The single best lens to get, and that of course obviously depends on what it is you plan to do, but no matter what sort of photography you do, whether it be portraiture or landscape or architecture, even though this is not an ideal lens for architecture or landscape, is the 45-100. The 32-64 is equally very, very useful, but nowhere near as much as the 45-100. 32-64 is not ideal for telephoto landscape. It's certainly not ideal for portraiture, even though it's perfectly fine for portraiture. The 45-100 also too has OIS, which the 110mm f2 portraiture lens does not have. I love that lens. I actually like the bokeh out of the 45-100 better than I do out of that of the 110. It's relatively not extremely expensive. It's less expensive than that of the GFX 100. The 110mm GFX lens. Also too, this is, and I've used this on every GFX lens, I can actually say that, this is the MCX18G WR. Don't even think about getting the 45. This is 18mm, hence the designation 18G. The 45 is 45mm too much. The actual band of autofocus range near to far is extremely limiting. This is a perfect, this actually, with this lens, makes a way better macro lens than the 120mm macro Fujifilm lens does. That's the reason why I sold it. I don't like how it renders. I'm definitely a guru of macro lenses. By the way, the best macro lens I've ever used, and I've used easily more than anybody, I don't say that egotistically, is the 80mm X-mount Fujifilm macro lens. Absolutely incredible. So incredibly sharp. Way better than the Zeiss. Way better than any of them, no matter how much they cost. I've said this over and over again, the single best prime is the 45mm GF lens. However, kind of a close second and a broader spectrum of use. You know, obviously the right lens for the right job, or the right tool for the right job. So when it comes to what somebody needs, you know, if they only focus on 1 or 2 things specifically, if they only do architecture, for example, then this is not the lens for them. I'm obviously not making a broad statement such as that this is perfect for everything, but in a general or roundabout spectrum, if somebody, say, does portraiture and you know, they need a range for portraiture, the 110mm portraiture lens is great, and of course the 80mm is coming out, and I've seen image samples of it, I hope to test it soon. But it's a fixed focal length. You have a lot more options, and I actually like the bokeh on this of the 45-100 over that of the 110. Infinitely more useful, and with the macro extension tube, it's a terrific macro lens for both macro. You need to have, of course, some really nice light mods to go with that, but also too for product photography. So Easily the single best, most useful lens for the GFX system, unless you're extremely focused on one particular area, like landscape, portraiture, architecture, so on and so forth. Narrowly focused on what you plan to do with it is the 45 to 100. Love the 32-64, but it's still nowhere near as useful as the 45 to 100. The 30 is a close second after the 45mm Sephora's Prime, so 23mm is absolutely awesome. 18mm field of view equivalent. Yeah, great for architecture, great for landscapes. Easily my second favorite lens, even though some people quip about its image output. There's nothing to sneeze at, is the 100 to 200mm zoom lens. It's great for everything. Absolutely love it. It has incredible OIS. The 250mm is not loved and not owned by many people, but the image output for it from it is incredible. It actually makes a great telephoto portrait lens, also telephoto landscape lens. It's an awesome lens. The 50mm, it often goes on sale for half price at $500, normally $1,000. Love the lens. The image output isn't super great. It's not bad. It's plenty sharp. It's very small. It's basically the size of this. I also have that lens. I bought it at $500. I guess that's about it. So I can't wait for the 80mm to come out, and I know that there's another GFX lens coming out. It's supposed to be like a 25mm to I think it's like a 25 to 30 or 25 to 40mm, excuse me. Basically an equivalent of a 14 to 24 equivalent lens. So I think it's like 25mm to 40mm, somewhere right around that range. Ultra wide zoom. I can't wait for that to come out. I know it's going to come out this year also, but once again, I give the pros and cons of every GFX lens, and download my free Fujifilm book in the link below. Huge medium format fan. I get so many tech support questions all the time about GFX cameras, and there's a reason for that. So a lot of the stuff on YouTube, you know, somebody will get like a camera, and they're only borrowing it. They didn't actually spend their own money on it. And I was, oh, this is great, man, look at these awesome pictures. And they may be a really awesome photographer, and they have some highly edited photos. Wow, that's great. But that doesn't prove anything. It's like, what's their spectrum of use of the system? I find that sort of corporate propaganda and superficiality to be detrimental to making a logical, intelligent, and wise decision on where to put your money. It's like, this guy actually owns all the lenses, and he spent his own money on them, and he writes free books about the system. You know, I might not like his personality, but he probably knows more, you know, than the talking head making fancy, fluffy videos that are completely empty of actual useful content. That was my superficial rant at the end of this video. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, and Fujifilm.